and she knows she's in big trouble. And Starmer knows she's in big trouble, and Starmer knows he can't get rid of her without him falling. Tesco's, I think, one of the country's biggest employers, has announced 500 job redundancies.
Yeah, I think Morrison's announced 3,000 last week or something.
We keep thinking everybody wants to be like us, and if we give them the opportunities, they'll be like us. They're never going to be like us. How much money people in this country send to relatives in foreign countries?
No.
8 billion.
A year?
A year.
Wow.
It's okay him being rich, but he's one of the good rich.
Yes.
And he's going to use him being good
Yes.
rich to empower and help everybody else. But I'm going to keep the money though.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to edition 76 of The Mayor and I, with I, Lindsay Khan, and Nick Buckley, MBE, the Mayor. I forgot to say it last time. If you like what you're going to watch or what you have watched, please give us a thumbs up.
Nearly at 32,000 subscribers now.
Nearly at 32,000 subscribers. People are liking what they're hearing, hopefully.
And the target for this year is, by the end of this year, is to get 100,000 subscribers. That's our target.
I think you've just made that up there, that figure, Nick. I'm not convinced there's any science behind it at all. So if you like what you're watching, thumbs up, please subscribe, which is what we like, and please buy Nick's book or buy him a coffee or something like that.
Yeah, the book's going really well, still going well.
Because we have no external funders or
we don't.
So it's, we need everything we can get.
And the reviews on Amazon are really good for the book.
Yes, because I remember when you first put it out, some people, trolls went in and went negative on you, didn't they? The bastards. But they couldn't write a book. So we discussing this every week, current affairs. There's a lot. I write my notes down here. There's a lot on at the moment, so we're trying to cover as much as we can, and hopefully we express opinions and ideas that you guys like as we go through. And Nick pronounces on various things basically as we go along. So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to stick with the list so we can try and get through some of this stuff. But I'd like to talk about the economy and Rachel Reeves, because that's kind of starting to come. We're starting to see some division in the Labour Party around the growth of the economy, net zero, all that sort of stuff, and I think a lot of it has coalesced around Heathrow this week as well, hasn't it? Because Ed Miliband, who's our nut zero czar, doesn't want the new terminal at Heathrow to go ahead. Is it a new terminal or a new runway?
New runway, third runway.
But suddenly Rachel Reeves has said she does. So what's happening there?
Well, Rachel Reeves probably a year ago didn't want it, but she needs to create some boost to the economy at the moment. And it won't be the planes landing on the third runway, it'll be building it and all the infrastructure, and that'll be a big project, so she'll get some bounce out of that. Because she has to do something. Tesco's, I think, one of the country's biggest employers, has announced 500 job redundancies today.
Is it today?
Yeah, today they've announced.
And I think Morrison's announced 3,000 last week or something.
So there'll be more to come. So, so she's not creating jobs at the moment. She's losing jobs because of all the tax rises on businesses. She's in big trouble, and she knows she's in big trouble. And Starmer knows she's in big trouble, and Starmer knows he can't get rid of her without him falling weeks or months later. So they're in a mess. I don't see how they get out of it. I don't think they've got the ideas, the vision, the intelligence, the knowledge to get out of it. Otherwise, they want to put themselves in it in the first place. I'm no economist, but I seem to know more than her about how to trigger growth in businesses and get people setting businesses up. But she's gone down the line of the Marxist socialist. Let's punish the rich because they're evil and that'll make us feel better. And if it wasn't for the rich keeping all the money, then everybody else would have more money. But that's not true. If it wasn't for the rich and the people with money, we wouldn't be producing the jobs and the money for other people to have. So part of this, her failings, is because it's a class war, and she's hammering the rich. And the other part is a lack of understanding about how economics works. And she should at least understand that to have a good economy requires government and politicians to have as little influence in it as possible. Let the market do what it does. have some regulations to make sure we're not poisoning rivers and we're not treating people unfairly in health. Of course we need that, but that should be a minimum. Where at the moment it's just, and I've spoken to lots of people who said they're well off now and they don't want to retire. They would set up some more businesses, but it's not worth the hassle. And I don't need the money, so it's not worth the hassle to not do it.
I think it's actually, I mean, you know, I'm in business. I think it's been like that for a few years, but people have plodded on regardless. I think what's happened now with this government is a killing stroke for a lot of people. And interesting, you mentioned about people who generate wealth. A very interesting statistic that's just come out. The UK last year, in 2024, lost 10,800 millionaires who basically went abroad. Compared to half that in 2023. So the exodus of the millionaires is accelerating basically as a result of this government.
Saw that online, and then we had some clever socialists saying, yes, Nick, but there's...
Oh, they said yes, Nick, to you?
Yeah, there's 2-3 million people, there's 2-3 million millionaires in the country. And that stumped me a little bit. I went, I don't know if there is or isn't. Then someone commented on it. Yes, but they're only millionaires on paper.
Correct.
It's because of the value of the houses.
Yes.
They're not millionaires how we imagine a millionaire to be, with fluid capital, with money in the bank, ability to raise lots of finance. That's what we mean by millionaire. We don't mean you bought a house for 50 grand in the 70s and now it's worth 2 million in London.
Correct.
So we need to be careful of people messing with the figures to make it look like...
But I think those millionaires who are going are ones who are mobile. Those are the ones who do have the money and the ability. And I know personally in my circle people who wealthy people who are going abroad, selling up and going abroad. And these are the wealth generators.
Yes.
And every one of them...
And the taxpayers.
Yeah, every one of them is worth typically 100, 200 normal taxpayers basically. So the tax impact from those guys is massive. Yeah, I know people who are considering going to America, Italy, all those places. It's happening. It is happening.
This happened in the 70s. It was called the brain drain.
Yeah.
Because, you know, our income tax was so high and stuff like that. So, and that was the 1970s when it was hard to go to different countries. But now we live in an age where it's so easy to share information, to travel, to live somewhere.
Yeah.
And you wonder why the people with the money and the know-how are fleeing this country. It doesn't surprise me. And those figures will get worse next year.
Yeah.
Because some of these people, it'll take time for them to move.
Yeah. Because it's a big decision. A business colleague of mine, an entrepreneur, texted me and he said, Lindsay, income tax in Florida, 0%.
Yep.
Corporation tax, 15%.
Yeah.
I'm off to Florida.
Yeah.
But it'll take him a year to mobilise, to get moving or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm saying is, so we've had a lot more in 2024. You're right, it's going to accelerate if we carry on with this government and this approach.
And I would say a lot of those figures, I would say the majority of those figures was caused by the Tory government. I don't think in those figures yet are the impact of this Labour government. Because it's not that fast, is it?
Yeah.
If you decided you were moving in October because the Labour government's cracked their budget, you're not moving in 2-3 months. You've got a lot of stuff to organise, sort out, sell. So I don't even think they're Labour's figures. I think the next year will be the worst.
Some of them may have been, and again, these guys are clever, aren't they? So some of them may have been people thinking, this is going to be crap under Labour. I'm going to get out now before they get into power. So there might have been some of that going on, which is why it's increased.
But they would have got to that stage by the Tories pushing them to that stage.
Yes.
Just knowing it's crap, but Labour's going to be worse. So the Tories did this as well.
Yeah. Well, we know they're the same party.
Exactly.
So you mentioned unemployment increasing. So employment fell, or job losses. There were 47,000 job losses in December.
At the time of year when they're recruiting more and more staff, even though it's part-time staff or temporary staff, because you've got the Christmas. So if you're losing jobs then, what's January going to be like? When January is a month where businesses fold because the Christmas wasn't as good as they thought it was going to be. People always hang on for Christmas hoping that saves them. And every year we see big names go in January. So what the January figures are going to be like?
And we're seeing this in our businesses, and our MDs are saying I'm getting rid of people or whatever. And I'm saying, well, why are you getting rid of... obviously, it's a more sophisticated conversation, but I'm paraphrasing. I'm saying, why are you getting rid of people? And they're saying, because our order books do not look great for the first quarter.
Yeah.
So they're saying, basically, people are not placing orders. When do people not place orders for goods and materials? When they're not confident, when they want to conserve money and they're not sure. So this is happening.
Yeah.
The economy is slowing down, definitely. The people who run businesses are seeing it, and they are laying people off.
Yeah. And now those companies that you're involved in are now buying less themselves.
Correct.
So
yeah.
other people's books are looking poor now because you've bought less advertisement, less items, less this, less that.
Yeah.
So other people going, my books look bad.
Yeah.
I need to let people, and it's that knock-on effect.
The steel guys, who are typical barometers of construction and that side, they're ringing up our companies now and saying, do you want to buy any steel? I've got no orders, basically. So it's happening. It's real. Yeah. So against this background, obviously, Rachel Reeves, she's seeing this, she's hearing it, employment's falling or whatever. What's the right way to react to that? Well, the way she's reacted to that, she went to Davos, to the World Economic Fund. And I don't know, and you're aware of Davos and you're aware of that environment, but I don't know if you've heard much about it, but apparently this year, it's a shadow of its former self. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I wasn't aware.
And the reason we do know it's a shadow of its former self is that Gary Neville and David Beckham were there. so
that's how bad it is now. You've got a bigger footballer in.
So as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
The WEF is coming to an end, basically. And there's a guy...
So it's now not a serious organisation.
Yes, it's not serious.
If you've got to invite celebrities in, is it?
So David Beckham was talking some bollocks about, I want my daughter to grow up in a world that recognises women, or something like that. And then Gary Neville, there's a guy called Avi something who chases people with a microphone.
He's Australian.
Is he Australian?
Yeah. He works for Rebel News.
Yes, that's it. So I saw him chasing two characters at WEF. One was Larry Fink, who's the chief exec of BlackRock, quite a serious character. And he had all these bouncers around him trying to push him away. But then he found Gary Neville and he said, come on, Gary, you're a good talker. Tell us what you're doing here. What do you think about the grooming gangs? And Gary Neville was, who never shuts up normally, was just saying nothing, trying to make fun of it. But he came across as an absolute imbecile in that thing. And he was saying, oh, you're here, well, what's your opinion on the grooming gangs, the rape of, you've got opinions, you're here to talk about politics and stuff, tell us what, and Gary Neville just wouldn't say anything, and it was hilarious. But I thought this signals the death of the WEF, doesn't it, when they've got to rely on characters like Neville and Beckham for publicity.
But it's no longer a serious organisation, because if the WEF was going to be serious, you'd have serious people there talking to other serious people. Yeah. You wouldn't have that bit.
I think people are not going there now. I know that Trump came on a remote camera to talk, and basically, I'm not sure what the content was, but I wish I'd watched it ahead of time. But I think he was basically saying it's dead. But Javier Milei went there again, and he laid into the WEF again, basically. What was very interesting, I read this very small snippets, and there's two things that are interesting here. Escort agencies at Davos, apparently they boom during Davos.
Yeah, they do.
The sex parties, there's NDA.
They're flown in from all over Europe.
They're flying across. NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, have to be signed for the prosies. So the prosies have to, prostitutes have to sign. No. Can I say prosies? Prosies is all right. Well, can't you say that? No.
I don't know.
I think prosies is a nice abbreviation of prostitutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The prosies.
The whores.
No, I don't like that. That is one word I do not like. I think that's a very pejorative expression for a prostitute. Prosies is kind of a nice, friendly thing. But that one you just use, I never use it.
Yeah.
NDA, the prosies have to sign in lots of NDAs. But apparently there's a massive increase. This made me a bit sick. In a demand for trans women. Blokes pretending to be women, and blokes with willies. Sorry, women who look like women but have willies. They're all flown in. That's
because these people are perverts. And at the moment, with all the discussion around trans and stuff, people from all over the world were flying in going, ooh,
I fancy a bit of trans.
I might try a bit of tranny. Get a tranny, a Brazilian dwarf and some sheep, and I've had myself a nice little party in this room. I've got the barbed wire. I can fuck it in a bucket, do it froggy style. I've been to some parties, me.
What did you say? A Brazilian midget, did you say?
Yeah, Brazilian dwarf.
Why Brazilian?
They're the best.
The Brazilian. You've heard it here first, folks. If you're going to have a sex party, the Brazilian dwarfs are the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. I was quite shocked by the trans women thing, but then I thought, why not? Because of course they're perpetuating this crap all around the world on us, aren't they? The trans thing. So why wouldn't they be interested in doing all that when they're at their little globalist parties?
Yeah, it's a kink. And Davos is known for this. So some of these people are flying in from Uganda, and this is his one trip a year to, I can't do any of this in Uganda. There's a death penalty for being gay in Uganda. But I mean, I'm at the WEF in Davos. It's expense accounts. Yeah.
The positive thing on that, though, the escort agencies have also announced or declared that takings are down.
Yeah.
So there are less people going to the WEF now. I think the message here is the global agenda, the global elite who are trying to control us is starting to collapse.
And it's not just our country that's almost bankrupt. It's countries all over the world. So, and if you spend
as a result of these policies,
yeah. And if you're spending money on prostitutes, that I would class that as a luxury item.
Yeah.
So when your expense accounts have been reduced and stuff like that, these things happen. So it's a judgment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of the way the world economy is going.
I mean, I just feel sorry for Rachel Reeves. I mean, she opened the wrong door at the WEF, walked in on the Brazilian midget and the pony or whatever it was at that point. She would be shocked.
Well, if she joined in, she could earn the country some money. I'm sure 75 quid would go a long way in the NHS.
So, I mean, it's shocking that our country's in such a mess and they go to these awful global organisations, but it's indicative, I suppose. I was reading some more about the economy, and apparently, I don't know if you saw this is probably a couple of weeks old now, but the Department of Work and Pensions have paid, in the last 5 years, have paid £500 million in pensions to people who've been dead. I don't know if you heard
I didn't see that. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Which is $100 million a year, basically. Yeah. So, again, what we're actually doing now is we're paying dead people, and we use it, and we're actually, that money could be used to actually pay little old ladies their heating bills, basically.
That's just another example of the incompetent systems we have, and that's why we need a smaller government with less of our money, because they waste it all the time. And that's just one example.
Well, the opposite is happening. Labour are also now, and I think we've discussed this before, but they're cutting £20 million of tax relief from churches to try and again bolster the economy. But the managed expenditure, which is basically, the managed expenditure is the money that we spend on our public services, basically, out of our GDP. So that's gone up. Unfortunately, the print's not great here. In 2019 and 20, it was 39% of our GDP. It rocketed, obviously, during COVID, but it's now settled at 44.7%. So it's 5% higher now than it was in 2019. And this is against a background, Nick, of course, of AI, all these things as well, that in theory should take away the cost. It's actually getting higher and higher.
States getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And that's because our politicians are becoming lazier and lazier.
Yeah.
And they think to solve a problem, you need more departments and more money and more staff. And once you've got those departments and got those staff, you can never get rid of them. So when something else comes along, we need another department now. We don't get rid of that department to create a new department. But the state's getting bigger and bigger. And people like Labour, especially Labour, they rely on the public sector vote. So what they're doing is they're creating more jobs for the people who are more likely to vote for them. So it's a Ponzi scheme for them.
And we've discussed these numbers before, but we now have 6 million public sector employees. 18% of I think you think it's 20, but I think the stats show 18% of the workforce, which costs us £250 billion a year of our cash, basically.
Who produce nothing of value.
Correct.
Of the economy. I mean, you could argue that, building roads or designing all those things. Yes,
they contribute. There's parts of the NHS.
But they themselves are not producing anything of value. It's only down the line from them that any value is created. It's just a huge monolith blob that sucks money in. And its only purpose, it seems, when I worked for 10 years for the council, the only purpose I could see was it's a job creator.
Yeah. It's that wages bill is gobbling up 10% of our GDP. So all the tax and money that's generated in this country by hard-working, non-public sector people, 10% of that is going into...
I thought it was more than that.
It's a lot, 250 billion. It's because our GDP is 2.5 trillion, which is a hell of a lot of money. And I think you and I have done the calcs before. We reckon we can save something like $500 billion of that money to put back into the economy. Against this background, civil servants are now threatening to strike, and I don't know if you've seen this.
I saw this.
They're threatening to strike over having to return. So this working from home thing, we've got to be careful what we say about it, Nick.
You do.
Some people have said very negative things about people who work from home, and I would never do that. But certain people who work from home are arseholes. I'll just say that now. However, the civil servants who have now been asked to return to work for 2 days a week, so they're all working from home. And by the way, we now know some of these are working from home in France, Barbados or whatever. So they've been told you've got to come back to work for 2 days a week minimum, which is a terrible stress on them. They're now threatening to strike over that.
Yeah, because I've had it so good for so long that if you try to take any of that away, it feels like persecution. And it never should have got to the stage in the first place. I'm not sure how you get civil servants back into the office under this administration or the Tories, because none of them have got the balls to do it. What we should be doing is sacking them.
Yeah.
Is make an example. You come back tomorrow, no, Mark, you're sacked.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna be shown the template for that, aren't we, in America? Because America's got the same issues over there, I'm guessing. Elon Musk is setting up Doge as we speak, and they're now going to be getting rid of people in America. I'd be interested to see how they do it.
Well, Trump, one of his executive orders was about no more working from home in the federal government.
Right.
That was one of his orders. So we'll see. Yeah. I mean, we don't need Trump to show us how to deal with this. We know how to deal with it. We need Trump to show us how to get the balls to do it and what the backlash is and how you deal with the backlash. That's what we need Trump for, because a lot of the answers to some of these problems are just simple, staring us in the face.
I disagree. I think we do need him to show us. It's like we talked about in the last episode. We talked about the Colombian thing. And then we did the parallel on Pakistani, getting Pakistanis, deporting Pakistani criminals or Pakistani illegal immigrants back to Pakistan. How do we move the levers to do that? And I think as a result of what we'd seen Trump do, we came up with some ideas, didn't we, about how that could be done.
If I'd have been in power and I wanted to deport people to Pakistan and the Pakistani government said no, within 5 minutes I'd have come up with that Trump plan.
Oh, right, okay.
Without ever even hearing of Trump's plan.
Right, okay.
Because it's plainly obvious how we do it.
Yeah.
It's, do you have the balls to do it?
Yeah.
And do you have the balls and the backbone to do it, not knowing what the reprisals may be?
Yes.
Because Pakistan or Colombia may have a move you've not thought of.
Yes.
So are you willing to take that chance? And if you're a coward, the answer is no, I'm not willing to take that chance.
And just for our gentle listeners, the ideas were, so if a plane full of Pakistanis was flown back to...
Yeah, criminal Pakistanis that we're deporting.
Well, which could be illegal immigrants as well. So not necessarily people who have committed an actual crime, but people who committed a crime by becoming illegal. So if we had a plane full of...
The fact they come here means they commit a crime.
Yes. So we have our hypothetical plane of Pakistanis we're sending back. Yeah. As it's about to land at what's the capital? Karachi Airport.
Not Karachi, Islamabad.
No, Islamabad
is the capital. Yeah.
Karachi somewhere else.
Karachi is the old capital.
Yes. As the plane is lying into land, the Pakistani government says, no, it's not going to land here, send it away. Nick is on the golf course, gets the phone call. What were the plans to stop that happening?
Well, would say things like, we're going to cancel every Pakistani visa. We're not going to allow any tourist visas. We're going to cancel the foreign aid we give to you, and any money transfers between the UK into Pakistan, we're going to tax at a 50% rate.
That's fantastic. That's really good.
Yeah.
Was that 50% tax on the money your idea? Or have you stolen it from somebody? Not that I would suggest you would do that. It's a great idea, that one.
I can't remember.
Yeah, because that's great. Why that's great is it keeps money in this country.
Yeah.
Which is what we want to do, don't we?
Do you know how much, well, a couple of years ago I looked into this, so let's say 4 years ago, how much money people in this country send to relatives in foreign countries?
No.
8 billion.
A year?
A year.
Wow.
And that's old now, that's like 4 years old, that figure.
I do know, remember when I came back from Mexico, I was chatting to a Mexican guy. He said Mexico's second biggest income stream was money coming from America.
Yep.
Yeah, so that again, that's the leverage that Trump has, and the leverage that we have over places like Pakistan, isn't it? Yeah. So now you know, folks. Just in case Nick and I are hit by a bus, you've now got the way forward. So the civil servants are threatened to go on strike because they're being told to come back to work for 2 days a week. So I'll be interested to see what Trump does in America with Joe, to see how he deals with the public sector employees, because that's something that will have to happen here eventually.
What'll happen is you have to fight the unions.
Yeah.
And you need to have the backbone and understand what's going to happen and what you're willing to do and not do, and understand that it's going to spread like wildfire. So just because you're dealing, let's say in this country, with the education department, well, all public services will come out and strike and think it's going to hit them next year. So you need to be prepared for mass walkouts, mass strikes in the public sector. And the way you combat that is mass sackings. And people will eventually change their tune when they've seen other people being sacked because no one wants to lose their job. And that's what we need to do. We need to show them who's boss. You work for us, and the government is our representation. So you're working for us through the government. And if we don't like the government, we'll vote them out. But at this moment in time, you work for us. You work for the government. Do as you're told.
I'll talk later about AI and how this is going to impact on things as well, because I think I've been reading more about that this week, and I think it's quite interesting. But I just want to go on to another big money waster of ours, which is the insane Ed Miliband.
Yep.
And Nut Zero and Ed Miliband. Now, when Trump said he was withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, Ed Miliband, who is obviously a sage, went on to warn Trump that net zero is unstoppable. So clearly Ed knows more than Trump does about this, although he's never actually won an election in his life or whatever. And this man, Ed Miliband, he to me, he seems clinically insane. The things he is doing.
He's a believer.
Yeah.
He's a believer. And if you believe in this, why wouldn't you do the things he's trying to do? Because you're trying to save the planet. You're trying to save the future of mankind. So if we have to go bankrupt, if we have to be poorer, we have to be colder. If some people will live in poverty, well, that's acceptable, because if we don't, the whole of mankind's going to die and the world's going to end. So I can understand why they're sort of zealots in this.
Yeah.
But for me,
I can't even understand it though, Nick. Especially given the percentage of CO2 this country emits in the global stage. It's nothing.
They do it because they believe in it, and they're hoping that if we can do it and lead and show the way, all the other countries will start doing it. So someone has to be the first person to make the sacrifice to save the country, and he's quite happy to be sacrificed because he believes in it.
I'm not convinced he does, but I think he's a narcissist, and I think he's just doing it because he thinks it will get him attention. He was one of the people who complained when Cameron brought in a photographer on the government
They've
payroll.
all got photographers now, haven't they? Yeah.
So he's just hired this guy, net zero, and blah, blah, I'm doing it for the good of it. He's just hired a photographer at our expense for 50 grand a year.
Yeah. Because he needs the PR, he needs the propaganda, he needs those photos to be pumping out all the time. Look at me at this power station, look at me in China, look at me at the river, look at me at the solar farms. So that's part of the propaganda.
He's just given a major contract to a guy called Dale Vince. I don't know if you've heard of Dale Vince.
He's a very old lesbian. You've seen him, haven't you? He looks like a very old lesbian.
I mean, who is this Dale Vince character? He's some sort of eco freak who's made a lot of money. Is that correct?
Yeah, he owns. Yeah, he's a multi-millionaire. He owns a green energy company,
which I think he's just sold, or he sold some of it.
Has he? Right. Yeah. But he's just been given a new contract off Millionaire to build solar panel farms in the UK. And last year, this is just a coincidence. This now, Lindsay. Last year, he gave 5 million to the Labour Party.
Ah,
that's just a
coincidence,
coincidence,
isn't it?
Just coincidence.
Yeah. And now he's just been awarded a massive fat contract by Millionaire.
Yes.
So this is what I mean. These guys, they appear as corrupt, and you know they're not socialists. They're just out for themselves, what they can get, you know. And it's all about publicity and political advancement, isn't it? I can't see that.
He's a champagne socialist, as in it's okay him being rich, but he's one of the good rich.
Yes.
And he's going to use him being good rich to empower and help everybody else. But I'm going to keep the money though.
Yes, and make more.
But I'm one of the good rich.
And some of the numbers here that Miliband is spending of our money are staggering. I know the Tories are balls deep in this as well, but
the Tories started it. It was Theresa May.
Yes.
Who started this by signing into law the green agenda and net zero.
And Theresa May was heavily involved in the tranny thing as well, wasn't she?
Yes,
she was.
Yeah, and it was Theresa May when she was Home Secretary that heavily reduced stop and search because it was racist. Theresa May.
She's caused a lot of problems.
A lot of problems.
So the subsidy we gave to the wind industry in 2024 was £7 billion. The wind energy now is just generating less than 9% of our energy, and on still days, nothing at all.
And on really windy days, nothing at all as well, because they have to turn them off.
Correct. Well, it's worse than that.
Right.
On a very windy day like we had a while ago, and I had to go to Wales because our place in Wales, because of the roof blew off the garage, I had to go down and strap down.
Did you, right?
Strap down the canvas to hold my roof down. On a very windy day like that, they have to switch off the turbines. But there's a cost attached to switching off the turbines. And apparently it's costing us every year £3 billion to close down the turbines. Because what happens is apparently they start chucking extra electricity into the cables can't cope and all sorts of crap. So they've got to close them down. But it costs all the people running around switching things off. It costs $3 billion a year that we have to pay as well.
I'm sure it's not just simply just that.
Yes,
I'm sure
there's not a large
it's a complicated thing. And then it's worse than that. I found out the other day that when they have windy days like that and they're not sure if they're going to turn off the turbines, they then have to fire up the gas, not boilers, the gas, what are they called?
Turbines.
No,
the gas power stations.
Power stations, the gas power station. They've got to turn them on, and they start running and producing no electricity just in case they're needed. So then we've got all that running, producing nothing in case it's needed.
They're not connected to the machines, just burning
burning, waiting to be used because to turn them on, there's like an hour start up, and you do it. So if extra power is needed because they've got to turn off the wind turbines, then we need something straight away. So these have got to be running, wasting everything in case they're needed.
Yeah.
It's a double system. We have a double system of green energy, which is great. You know, we're using it, but always running alongside it are the fossil fuel energy systems that are waiting in the wings because you can't rely on that. We're running two systems. It'd be cheaper to run one system.
And a really good example of that, I'll stray off a bit here, go back to WEF. But apparently there's a video, I've seen a video at the WEF, and it's all these executive electric cars lined up, big executive Teslas, all lined up in a row, all plugged into a central cable. And then they follow the cable down, and it goes to a massive diesel generator at the end. And it's like, don't they see what they're doing here?
There was one a couple of years ago, I think it was the WEF again, a world leader, I'm not sure who it was, and they filmed cycling to the centre, and then they showed a video 30 seconds before. She gets out of this limousine, there's a bike waiting, she cycles the last 70 yards to the front door for the cameras, but she's arrived by car.
They are just such grifters, aren't they, these people? So, apparently 2 weeks ago, we came very close to blackouts.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know if you're aware of that. And this is when it was very still. So we've had a very windy session. Before that, it was very, very still.
And cold.
And
so
cold.
People had the heating on.
People had the heating blasted up. There was no wind. And because we could only get 9 to 10% of our energy from these, there wasn't enough energy being generated, basically. We were buying gas on the spot markets, desperately to try and keep the gas power stations going, basically.
And everybody else in Europe was doing the same thing, so the price of that gas rocketed.
Correct.
So we bought the most expensive gas in the world because we almost ran out.
Yeah, and you said it yourself earlier. We have enough gas under us for 50, for a minimum of 50. I think you think it's
hundreds of
that.
years.
But there's something else happening as well, which you may not be aware of. I might surprise you now.
Go on.
Have you heard, Nick, of the Climate and Nature Bill?
Yes, I have. I don't know much about it. I just know it was going to Parliament to be voted on.
Yes.
And hence why I know the net zero stuff is coming to an end, because the Labour Party have whipped their MPs to vote against it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now you're surprising me.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I was going to try and stun you with some really...
It was brought to Parliament by a Lib Dem. All the Lib Dems and Greens are going to vote for it.
Yeah. Correct. It's Ed Davey. So Ed Davey had whipped all his 72 MP. He's got 72 MPs, even though he got less votes than Reform. He's got 72 MPs. Yeah, so he whipped all his MPs to vote for this Climate and Nature Bill. Now, the Climate and Nature Bill, the target is to cut hydrocarbon emissions by 90% within a decade.
Yeah, impossible.
And apparently the people who reviewed this, and these people are imbeciles, aren't they? They are just imbeciles. That Ed Davey is a clown. He's an imbecile. He's a clown. He's a fool. But somehow he's leading that party. People have done assessments of this. To do that within a decade, cut hydrocarbon emissions, and hydrocarbon is everything. So all fossil fuel, any kind of emissions, gas emission. So it's not just petrol. It's everything. Where carbon-based generating. It would result in mass starvation, death, disease, and societal collapse. Basically, that's what they've assessed. But this imbecile Ed Davey has been pushing this. Basically, I didn't realise that had happened about the whip. So they voted it out, have they?
I'm not sure if it's been. I'm not sure. I think they did. I'm not sure if it's been in yet. I'm not sure, but I know that I read that Labour's being whipped to vote against it because, again, they're trying to save the economy they've ruined. They can't have this as well. This is going to kill everything. Now, the reason why I know people like Ed Davey and all these lunatics, even if they believe it, the reason why I know they're fools and ideologues, because let's say net zero is true. Let's say it turns out me and you are wrong.
Yeah.
That carbon, our emissions across the world, but our country as well, we are killing the planet and everything's going to go wrong. Let's say that is completely true. What's the answer? Well, the answer is easy. We need to find a power source that doesn't rely on carbon. So it could be green energy, but do you know what else? Nuclear.
Yeah.
Reliable, safe, fairly inexpensive. We can build them in 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
You think if it's the end of the world, why aren't they going build a load of nuclear power stations, and then over the next 10, 20, 30 years, we need to move to completely solar, wind, but let's get rid of all the coal and the gas, because that's killing us all. Let's go straight to nuclear, and then we'll figure out proper green energy after that. The fact none of them ever talk about nuclear as the answer means none of them are serious people. They're ideologues. It's a religion to them. They're not looking for solutions.
Why are they not considering nuclear?
Their answer will be, it's dangerous. What we're doing with the pollution. But the answer,
the nuclear waste,
the answer to that is, does it matter about pollution?
Yeah.
We're all going to die in 10 years.
Yeah, that's a really good point, yeah.
If we're going to die in 10 a bit of pollution now, and let's sort the pollution out over the next 10, 20 years. But let's stop the world dying, build power stations, and then we'll deal with the problem afterwards. The fact nobody wants to talk about nuclear means none of them have given it any serious thought.
Yeah, because otherwise that would be part of kind of a managed approach, wouldn't it? We'll build nuclear.
If your house was on fire,
and
you're trying to save your house, and next door to you there's loads and loads of polluted water, and it's like, oh, I could throw this on the house, but it's going to pollute the house.
It'll give some polluted fumes off and things like that.
And it's going to there'll be residue in the house and stuff like that I want to live in, but my house is on fire. There's no other option. Let's put the flames out, and then I'll have to deal with the pollution later.
Yes. That's exactly what you do.
But that's not what they're doing. They're going, the earth is burning, we're all going to die. But I'm not willing to accept nuclear.
Yeah.
They're full of it.
That's a great point, that. I've never even thought of that before. It's a really good point. So that is actually the argument to have with any of these nut zero fanatics when it comes, let's build nuclear plants.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not the answer. Let's build wind. No, let's build nuclear plants. Cheaper, won't take all our money, and we know it works, don't we?
Yeah. And it will stop the earth ending in 10 years.
Yeah. Although that 10 years is moving all the time.
It's always 10 years.
But interesting, just on Ed Davey, before we move on, Ed Davey sent a tweet, I think, saying to Elon Musk, saying, you don't understand our country, you don't understand our politics or whatever. And Elon Musk's response was this: what exactly do I fail to understand about your failure to stop the mass rape of little girls in Britain, you snivelling cretin?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, that is exactly what somebody just used to say to Ed Davey when he's in Parliament.
It's a perfect answer.
Yeah.
Perfect answer.
Yeah. Just brilliant. So moving on now from our wasteful government, just onto immigration, something that you and I talk about quite often, and just something that really caught my eye, and I'm sure you saw it this week as well. There's a school in Northamptonshire.
Yep.
I can't remember what it's called. It's got a funny name, like Dunleavy or something. I can't remember what it's called now. I'm sure our viewers might tell us. So there were a bunch of asylum seekers loitering outside the school, which raised concern clearly with the school. So the police went to see the migrants, and do you know what they told them, Nick?
They need to be more culturally sensitive about grown men hanging outside primary schools.
Yes. They said they need to adhere to cultural expectations in England. Because, of course, in England, our cultural expectations are that we don't expect grown men to hang around outside of schools. However, in the countries they've come from, it's fine for grown men to hang around outside schools.
Well, in their countries, there isn't schools.
Yes.
And if there is schools, there's no girls in them.
Yes.
And if there was girls in them, they should be married because some of them are over 9 years old. So it's a completely different culture. And that's why we have these problems. We expect people who come from different parts of the world to be like us. And they would be like us if their country was better, if they had more resources, more opportunities. They would be like us. But the answer is they would be never like us because they've got a different history, a different culture, different traditions, a different mindset, different genes. They're never going to be like us. And we keep thinking everybody wants to be like us. And if we give them the opportunities, they'll be like us. They're never going to be like us.
I have a slightly more cynical explanation for this, which part of what you said is correct as well, culture or whatever. I go back to my point. Who are these asylum seekers? Who are these people who have come here? They are misfits. They are people who don't fit in their own country. They are people who can't be successful in their country. And I would argue that some of them will have come from countries where there are schools with young girls in as well. And in that country, they're the type of people who would hang around outside the schools as well. But they come over here, and they are perverts. They're people who have sexual desires or have ambitions around young girls, and they just go and do what they would have done in their own country. But in their own country, if they'd done it, they'd have been grabbed by. They wouldn't have been given a discussion from the police about what caused. They would have been hit over the head with a truncheon and thrown in jail, or had their willies chopped off, or whatever they do to sexual offenders in those countries. So I think it's a double whammy. I think there is the cultural thing that maybe they don't have schools, they don't understand it. But I think also the asylum seekers, the people on these boats, a high proportion of them are people who you don't want in your own, who wouldn't be wanted in their own countries.
Potentially. And there's also the issue of the portrayal of white women across the third world as sexual deviants, promiscuous, prostitutes, and white children as well. So there's that promotion of that. So they're looking at white women going, oh, I've seen you online. I've seen you on videos about you, and you're all dirty tarts. And they come from a culture where women are hidden, where you risk violence from husbands and brothers and fathers if you mess with women without an invitation over there. And they come over here, and it's like a kid in a candy shop. Yeah, they can't believe they've got a 4-star hotel, being given money, got clothes. Some people are telling they're amazing and they're glad they're there, and you've got a school next door full of marrying age girls.
And it also doesn't help that the Welsh Immigration Council send videos abroad of 9-year-old girls inviting refugees over as well. So.
Hi, are you a refugee in Sudan? My name's Emily. I'm 11 years old. Why don't you come to Cardiff?
We've got to be careful, because one of our viewers commented, "You two sound like a couple of old perverts saying that 12-year-old girls are sexy." So you better stop that, Nick.
Okay.
Sweden's been back in the news this week. Their asylum seeker numbers have dropped to a 40-year low this year. So they've finally taken action. But there's an interesting stat behind that. What a lot of people don't know. Do you know how many bombings there were in Sweden in 2023?
Hundreds.
Yes, 149 bombings.
It's the bombing and raping capital country of Europe.
Now, do our glorious media ever tell us this stuff?
No.
Have you ever seen anything, not that neither of us watch the news on mainstream media anymore, have you ever seen anything in the news saying Sweden's in a mess, they had 149 bombings last year?
No.
So they had 149 bombings last year, they had 129 they had 149 in 2023, 129 in 2024, so it's still a mess over there. But in 2015 they took in 163,000 migrants, which is a lot for a small country like Sweden. Only 6,250 last year. They've embraced it, haven't they now?
Yeah.
Basically, they've taken care of it, and they said, that's it, it's finished now.
Yeah.
And again, an example here, but something that we never see happening, or we never see on the news in this country, do we? Something else we don't see on the news, the AFD in Germany. Yep. Now, the chap I sat last night at the dinner, he's going to Germany. He's seeing what's happening in Germany, and again the mainstream media. So he's getting an image of Germany as all harmonious and fantastic and thriving in the EU, and of course it's an absolute mess. But the leader of the AfD, Alice Weidel, recently made a speech, and again I think this is partially the Trump effect, but just the fact that people are now not reacting to these things as they used to, basically. So she called for large-scale repatriations. She's said we need to tear down the wind farms, which I agree with as well. And she calls them the windmills of shame, basically, presumably because they're spending so much money on them, like in this country. And also to close down all gender studies in the universities as well, basically. So she's now saying basically what Trump is doing as well. But I think what's interesting now is if she'd have said that 2 years ago, they'd have said, can you believe what this fascist is saying? She's a racist, whatever. That's not being said now.
No, these are becoming main talking points now.
Yeah.
You know, the Tory party have discussed remigration.
Yes, really?
Yep. The one who ran against Kemi.
Yeah.
He's talked about it.
Yeah.
He's had some flack, but he's talking about
Robert
it.
Jenrick.
Yeah.
Rupert Lowe is explicit.
Yes,
He's
is,
called for mass deportation.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware, I'm sure it has, some people have done it, I'm not aware of him now being labelled as a real set of fascist and a racist, unless you're seeing stuff that I'm not
Only
seeing.
by the people you'd expect to call them that.
Yeah.
But the mainstream media, the mainstream media now are discussing it as a valid topic because everyone's discussing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've hit that tipping point now where people are having these conversations and no one's afraid now of being called racist, fascist, because you're not always being called that now. And even when you are, people just don't care anymore now.
Yeah. And I'll take us back to one of our editions of The Mayor and I, and I would say it's probably only 6 months ago, probably 8 months ago even, where we talked about Calvin Robinson. And Calvin Robinson says something which shocked me, which was that all Pakistanis should be deported back to Pakistan.
Yeah.
And you and I discussed it, and you were a bit shocked as well. In light of what's happened in the past 2 or 3 months, that doesn't sound as insane as it did then, does it? Even to us who are fairly radical in our views, or not.
Well, we still don't know what he meant. You think he means Pakistani's heritage. I think he meant Pakistani nationals.
Yes.
So deporting all Pakistani nationals, it's not got a problem with that.
Yeah, yeah. But I think now a lot of the public wouldn't have a problem with that.
No.
And I think that's where that's the paradigm shift I think we're seeing now, isn't it?
The public have definitely changed over the last year. Definitely changed. And more information is coming out all the time. And more atrocities. There was another atrocity in Germany the other day.
Yes, I was going to mention about you. Carry on, yeah.
Yeah, but there's atrocities all the time. And every time there's atrocity of a start, I go, black or brown person. And guess what? I've not been proven wrong yet. So always a black or brown person.
Yeah.
Nearly always an immigrant.
Yes.
And it's like, and people can see this now, and it's being reported all the time, and people have had enough.
Yeah. The AFD have also. Have you heard of the thing called the AFD firewall?
I don't think so.
So the AFD, again, for our gentle listeners, the AFD is this a right-wing party in Germany. Yeah. I think you're a bit concerned about some of their views, aren't you? I think you've expressed.
No, I don't know that much about them.
All right. Somebody else has expressed some concerns. So the AFD firewall is basically that the other parties won't form a coalition with them because so there's been this firewall, but the CDU, which is a left-wing socialist, has now said it's open to support from the AFD to pass immigration measures. Yeah. So now the AFD have now come on and said the firewall is cracking. So basically, the left-wing organisations now are under so much pressure from the public, and we've seen some horrific things in Germany recently. They are now saying we're gonna if we have to partner with the AFD to get some of these immigration measures through for the population, we're going to do it.
That's not what they're doing. They're saying to themselves, if we've got to partner with the AFD so we can keep our seats and we can keep politicians and we can keep on the gravy train, then we're willing to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I understand that. This is political survival for them.
Yes.
So it's happening.
Yeah.
In Paris, I don't know if you heard about this, but the liberal left owners of or managers of a theatre called the Gape Lyrique Theatre. Have you heard about this?
It proper made me giggle.
So something happened. I don't know what it was. I think the government was saying we're not going to house these people because blah blah blah. They're these immigrants, illegal immigrants. So they opened their doors to these illegal immigrants and said, "Come and stay here until you find somewhere to go." Blah blah blah. Whatever. They can't get rid of them. And it's they thought they were 16 or under, these people. I've seen videos of the people. They look about 26 through the mid to late 20s. They fill the theatre up. All these lovies let them in. Yeah. You can imagine all the theatre lovies letting them in, basically. And then they're like, "Oh, can you go now? Because we need to put on a no, we're not going."
And the theatre now is almost bankrupt.
Yes,
because they've had no shows in a month.
Correct.
It's hard to make money as a theatre anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, they're going bankrupt and they can't get them out. But this happens all the time. I think about 10 years ago, there was an American married couple who had a tandem bike, and they wanted to cycle through Asia and to spread love, because Islam's not bad. And one of the countries were going through, Afghanistan or Pakistan somewhere, they got murdered and beheaded. There's a woman in Belgium, is it? I saw on a video the other day. She felt sorry for the immigrants in her little town, and she told them they could put their tents.
Was that Belgium, was it?
I think it was Belgium.
Oh, I thought it was America. Was it Belgium? Yeah. No, I think you're right. It was.
Yeah, I think anyway, it might not be Belgium. I thought it was Belgium, but she let them come on the land, put tents.
Yeah.
She can't get rid of them now. They're using drugs. They're fighting, and she's scared stiff. And it's like, this is what happens. This is what happens when you get stupid people who think everyone in the world is like them.
Yes.
And if I can show you kindness, you'll show me kindness.
Yeah.
And what you don't understand is showing kindness to a lion, it will still eat you.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lion does, and that's what these people do.
But I don't want to give them an excuse, Nick, but I think what's happened here is Europe, the British or whatever, we fought hard as empire. We're out there, we were tough. I mean, from the sort of 16th century, when the British were basically pirates and criminals, they worked hard to create an empire, to create value, to make their people rich. They made their people rich, and then the people became soft because they became used to the wealth, and they assumed this is the way it always is. So everybody can be like us, but it's just because we're so selfish. They don't understand that the lives they enjoy now were hard fought for by previous generations who were hard men, hard people. And so they've become soft, and they're soft people, and then you've still got the same threat over here. It looks in, it sees these people. There's nobody hard around anymore because they're all enjoying, and they're just like, we'll step in. And the soft people, and because they're soft now, they're sheep basically, they don't understand what's happening, do they? They're like dodos. I think the parallel is dodos. The dodos had lived a fantastic life in the Galapagos Islands. No natural enemies.
No predators.
No predators at all. The sailors came on the island, and the dodos would walk up to them.
To see what they were, and they'd take them and eat them.
And I think that's what's happening. It's kind of the invasion of the dodos. But I think now some of the dodos are waking up. Some of the sheep are actually waking up and becoming more like wolves, aren't they? Now.
Well, that's called natural evolution, isn't
it?
You adapt or you die. There's a saying that's all over social media all the time. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create soft times. Soft times create weak men.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is good. Yeah. Hard men create soft times. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason that the AFD thing is shifting now, you referenced it. In Germany, there was another attack, a nursery group. Killed a 2-year-old boy. And a 41-year-old man stabbed to death, basically. Again.
Afghan asylum seeker. Refused Afghan asylum seeker who'd been arrested and assaulted somebody a few weeks before.
The numbers, I think I may have covered these numbers before, but again, in the UK, 9,000 in 10 months of 2024, 9,000 foreign nationals were arrested for sexual offences. 26% of all sexual offences arrests, and I think you mentioned them before, 3.5 times more likely than Britons to commit
sexual offences.
A shocking number came out last week for the Centre for Migration Control that over the last few years, 18,000, have you heard this number?
I don't know.
18,000 foreign nationals have been released from our prisons back onto the streets. So you referenced in America about that Thai guy who basically raped a 9-year-old child or whatever and then released. We've got 18,000 of them on the streets here. So we've not only got 10,000 in the jails themselves, there's 18,000 who've committed crimes who have been released back onto the streets.
I talked about that a couple of weeks ago where I said not only should we deport the 10,000 in jails, we need to go through the records of who's been in jail previously and is a foreign national and we deport all them at the same time.
We've talked about the Cresta Court and Altrincham. There's now letters going in. I don't know if you've seen them in the schools. Yeah. So the school heads are now writing to the pupils and telling them to be careful on the streets of Altrincham.
What have Altrincham done? What has Altrincham done? Imported 300 strange middle-aged, young fighting age men from all over the world next to schools, next to girls' schools, and now they're having to say to our young people, boys and girls, boys as in be safe so you don't get stabbed, and girls be careful so you don't get sexually assaulted. There was no need for this problem.
Yes.
But it's been imported into the middle of Altrincham, who have got 3 Green councillors, a Labour MP and a Labour council. That's why you have a problem, Altrincham.
If we now, just talking about those councillors, and we've talked about this before, Reform are now in the polls as a favourite to win the next election.
Get the most seats,
Get the most seats with Nigel Farage as the new Prime Minister. Do you think that's a realistic prediction?
I've no idea. Pollsters give you an idea, they're never accurate. Will it be like that a year or two from now? Who knows? But you can feel it around the country, you can feel it speaking to people. Everyone's had enough. I don't think Reform are that popular because it's Reform and because of their policies. I think Reform are this popular because there's no one else to vote for. And people have got to the stage where I'm willing to vote for anyone as long as it's not the people I've been voting for the last 20, 30, 50 years. I'm willing to give someone a chance who may make things worse, because can they get any worse? But they might do something right. So I think Reform are just the right people at the right place at the right time. It easily could have been somebody else.
And I think a year ago, if I'd have said that to you, you'd have said no. You'd said no way. Remember?
Yep.
You were saying this is going to be another 4 years or whatever it might be, but this has accelerated, and there's been a number of factors all going in the favour of people like you and me, basically. Yeah. Trump winning, Trump what he's doing, this horrendous government.
Yeah.
One of the worst governments, one of the worst prime ministers we've ever seen in our lifetimes, I think. We've got to say that.
Absolutely.
Who just seem to do worse and worse things all the time. Every week they do something insanely mad, which doesn't make any sense. Almost to the point where you think, is there an agenda here? Are the elites, whoever controls the government, just making these guys do this because they just want this stuff done, and they just want somebody to do it quickly and take? Because Starmer's like a robot, isn't he? He just keeps on going.
He's got a plan.
Yeah,
and he doesn't want to be popular. He knows he can't be popular. He knows he's not being elected again. He wants to get as much of his plan implemented as possible, so the next socialist leader will have an easier ride. Yeah. Because all the groundwork's been done.
But I was hearing somebody compared him to the Terminator. And if you watch the first Terminator film, the Terminator is unrelenting in its process. He keeps going and going and nothing can stop him. No matter what he's doing. And he's almost like that. He's almost that blink. I mean, he's actually. I mean, people paint him as a bumbling fool, but he's actually quite a scary character, isn't he?
It's too easy to paint these people as idiots and fools because they're not.
Yeah.
Even though our system has been corrupted and it's incompetent, you've still got to be intelligent to be able to ride the wave to get to the top. He's become Prime Minister. You don't become Prime Minister by being an idiot. He just lacks certain skills. And unlike the Terminator, he will not be back.
I want to talk about now the dying throes of the elite and the rising right. And this is a kind of a mixture of things which you may or may not be aware of, where I'm sort of seeing glimmers of hope, but then you still see mad insanity, basically.
Yeah.
We talked about Avi Yemeni, who's the guy from Rebel News, and there's a great video. I think it's actually quite old. I think you told me it's older than It's about a year old. There's a march. I think it's a march of, I don't know who, it might be the Southport riot marches or whatever, and there's a guy sticking his finger up at the crowd.
Yeah.
And Avi Yemeni goes up and says, why are you sticking your finger up at the crowd? And similar to the Australian guy I was talking to saying that Trump was a right-wing fascist, he asked him, and it's an astonishing video. I would recommend our viewers to watch it.
I watched it the other day.
Yeah, Avi Yemeni, and it's a guy sticking his finger up the crowd. Yeah. And he starts to grill this guy and says, why are you sticking your finger up the crowd? And the guy cannot answer the question. Because he said, because they're such and such.
He said, because they're fascists. Why the fascists? They're here protesting the sacked leader of the council in Australia.
Oh, it was in Australia,
Australian town. Right. Well, I take it you think that council leader you're on his side. Oh no, I'm not on his side. Well, they're not on his side. That's what they're protesting about. All right. Well, it's because of all their views. What views?
Yeah.
Well, can you point to? Well, I can't. There's too many to tell you. No. Just give me one view, and how do you know they've got that view? And he just went on and on and on like that. And then the guy had to walk away, and he couldn't answer anything.
Yeah.
It was the same thing that we just discussed before with that guy in the episode. We talked about a guy you sat next to in a meal who was talking about Trump's a fascist, and you asked him, "What do you mean fascist? What's his?" And he just rhetoric.
Yes.
I've been told they're bad guys, so I can give them the finger. Makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I have no idea who they are, what they stand for, and why they're out protesting.
Yeah.
But I just know I've been told they're the bad guys.
Yeah. And if more people would just do what Avi Yemeni does all the time, we would start to break this down. And I would recommend that people do that. If somebody makes a statement or does something like that, you need to challenge and question them. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's great to see these people. So that's a positive. On a negative, Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck has been removed from the teaching list in Wales because it makes reference to, there are racist, so-called racist references in there, basically.
They've been doing this for quite a while. There's lots of books now you cannot study at university that you can't read. There's books at university now that you still can read, but they have warnings on them.
Yes.
About this might upset you. And I saw something on the news the other day, the new print run of some Roald Dahl books have been edited.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's horrific.
It's like, you think you're better than Roald Dahl?
Yeah, yeah.
And Roald Dahl, I believe, had some real, was from what I believe was racist and was a bit of a Nazi.
Yeah, I think he was,
But that doesn't matter.
Yes.
He wrote some fantastic
books, yeah. It's like J.K. Rowling, people burning J.K. Rowling's books. Well, why would you do that? I think you said she's taught more people to read, to re-embrace reading, young children, than anybody else, any author in the past. Whatever. Bridget Phillipson, who's the Education Secretary, has said that teachers need the right to work from home.
Of course, because teachers vote Labour.
Yeah, but doesn't that, the bit when I read that, I was like, yeah, but don't teachers need to be in front of students teaching them? Isn't that what teaching is?
Dinosaur, you aren't you? You think you need teachers in classrooms? But a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, what we just said then wouldn't have been funny because it would have been unbelievable.
Yes, correct, yeah.
We're laughing at it now because it's stupid, but it's happening.
Yeah.
5 years ago, no one would have believed that any teacher said, I want to work from home.
That would have been a joke, wouldn't it?
A stupid joke.
It would have actually been a cartoon, teachers demand the right to work from home. But now, actually, it's like,
they do fight for the right to work from home.
Yeah.
Crazy.
On a more positive, Stuart Rose, who's the guy who used to run BHS and Asda, he's come out and said working from home is not proper work. Basically, you don't get the work quality. The quality of the work done is not done. It needs to stop, basically.
We've known this from day one.
We have. But it's nice that they're actually coming out and saying it now. And we know Elon Musk's views. I
understand why people want to work from home. It's fantastic. Less travelling, less expensive, more comfortable. I understand why people want to work from home. Well, but that's not that's as an employer, that's not my concern.
Yeah. But my mole, we were talking about this, working from, and he's just taken a job where he's working a physical job basically, and he said it's very, very satisfying or whatever. But then I was talking about working from home. I think I may have sent him something like that, and he said, "Why are the bosses tolerating it?" And I said to him, "The bosses do it as well." So I see, you know, people who don't own their own businesses, who work for other people, who are running, they like to work from home. So of course they're not going to argue about it, are they? I've been on lots of Teams meetings with MDs of businesses, and they're sitting in their house, and I'm like, "Oh, you're working from home today," you know, sort of thing. And it's like, you know, and of course they encourage it because it gives them a chance to hang around at home 3 days a week and feed the dog or whatever they do.
Well, when it's not your money and not your profit and you're guaranteed your wage, we all can become lazy or lazier.
Yeah, and you made a great point before. Trump has said no more working from home, and that is exactly what needs to happen here.
Yeah, in your businesses, if you allow your MDs to work at home or staff to work at home, well, that's entirely up to you because you own that business. Yeah. When it comes to the public sector, they work for me.
Yes.
And I don't want them working from home.
Correct.
Because I know they're unproductive. They're already unproductive because they're public servants.
Yeah.
But they're even more unproductive when they're working from home.
Yeah.
It needs to be stopped because they work for me.
Yeah. But I just want to emphasise that not all people who work from home are arseholes, as I think somebody said in the previous episode.
Did you?
Sutton Council, you'll be pleased about this one. They're advising staff not to ask for Christian names because it's going to offend someone. If I said to you, what's your Christian name? You could be like, well, how dare you? I'm a Muslim.
Yeah. We get these stories. These stories pop up all the time, such as about not wishing people Merry Christmas, about saying...
I go out my way to wish people Merry Christmas and Christmas, by the way.
Not using the word blackboard or whiteboard, using the word chalkboard or whatever. No manhole colours, they're called maintenance covers. We have this crap all the time, and it's usually just one or two idiots in the council, in the government department, who come up with it, and then the press jump on it. They're not real. It's not really an issue. It just shows where we're wasting money in the public sector. Who's having these discussions?
People who get paid too much and are not working hard enough.
Yeah,
clearly.
at home.
Yeah. The MOD recently announced that 1/5 of our armed forces are not fit to fight. They're not very healthy.
Doesn't surprise me. Well,
1/5 of the armed forces.
Well, that's because they did what the police did. They had to lower recruitment to employ more women. So if you lower recruitment standards to get more women to join, then that also allows fat, overweight, lazy men to join as well. So all these things happen by lowering, and then we had to lower recruitment more to make sure ethnic minorities could join. Not because they don't make good soldiers, it's because the ones who would make good soldiers are being directed by their parents to be solicitors and dentists and doctors. So we have to get the ones who can't be that. So they get sent to join the army. And because we need equity, we need so many, and we lower the standards again. I read something, I couldn't find figures on the English army when I was writing my book on feminism, but I found the stats for the American army. I can't remember how many women are in the American army, but it's something like 97% of all leg injuries are females.
Oh, you told me about this.
In the army.
Yeah.
They're not strong enough. That's why we call them the weaker sex.
Yeah.
So even when we get them to pass the fitness and get them to join, they hurt themselves more.
They get injured because they can't tolerate the same,
So looking at the British Army, 20% can't fight, because the fat, the mental health, they wear makeup. I'm talking about the men. They've got makeup on, they've got blue hair, high heels, call me Dorothy. We've got people like that in the army now. We've got people with mental health issues in the army because you can't discriminate.
I'm envisaging an army populated by people like you and me, basically.
Yeah,
slightly overweight, unfit, middle-aged men.
Well, they're not middle-aged. They're still young, but they're not what you imagine an army. A couple of years ago, there was a recruitment advertisement for America and for Russia, and the American one was a cartoon. It was this little girl. I was raised in San Francisco, and I went to pride marches, and I was very lucky because I had two mummies, and then I joined the army to be all I could be, and now I run this missile battery mobile unit, and then it's showing you the Russian advertisement on TV to recruit people. It looked like some out of Rocky IV. It was like Drago, and he's running, and and it's like, I know which one I don't want to meet on a battlefield.
And we've seen that in California recently. We've seen that with the DEI thing, that boat in New Zealand, but also with the
fires in New Zealand,
in California. Yeah.
If you find yourself in a burning building, it's your fault because I can't carry you out.
I think we've covered this before, but this is called The Dying Throes of the Elite and the Rising Right. Nicola Sturgeon has divorced her SNP husband, Peter Morrell. Have you heard about that?
I have.
So we've always had the view, haven't we, that this is a sham marriage, or what do they call it, a lavender marriage, or whatever.
I don't know.
But now
I've never heard that their marriage was a sham until this year.
All right.
So I didn't hear the rumours.
Well, the rumours and the alleged rumour is that
she looks like a lesbian.
Is that she may be a lesbian?
Well, she looks like a lesbian, but that doesn't mean she's a lesbian. I know heterosexual women who look like lesbians.
And she may be having an affair with a French diplomat. That's the rumour. And this is a two-stage process where first she leaves her husband, next minute she'll be moving in.
Quite possibly true. She probably thought to herself, am I going to go far in politics in Scotland, decades ago, as a lesbian? Will it be convenient for me to be married? The guy I'm going to marry knows I'm a lesbian, but is also a fraudster and a crook, so that makes him look good. So it could possibly be true. But if it is true, it just shows what a sham she was.
Yeah. Well, it just
living a lie and lying to the people all the time.
And I think this is the point, isn't it, Nick? A lot of pigeons are starting to come home to roost now, aren't they? Ones that we hoped would come home to roost. But I think it's maybe happening faster than even we imagined.
And it's going to get faster and faster. Things are speeding up every week. It's getting faster and faster.
There's still people who don't understand what's happening. So have you ever heard of an actor called Digimon Hunsu?
No.
He's a black American actor, and you will know him.
Oh, yes. He was in Gladiator.
He's a nice-looking guy. He's a big black guy, muscular,
or whatever. Good films.
Yeah. He's been in loads of blockbusters.
Yeah, he was in the Diamond film about Blood Diamond.
He was in Blood Diamond.
Yeah.
So you obviously know him quite well.
Yeah.
So he was recently interviewed and basically said that he'd been the victim of systemic racism through his entire career in Hollywood. Yeah. He's worth about $20 million. Yeah. He's been in most of the biggest blockbusters where black characters as well. But he has the balls to go to an interview and say he's been the victim of systemic racism.
Many successful black people do this because they've been bombarded with this all their lives. And it's easier to say, I've not been as successful as I want to be. It can't be my fault. Something was holding me back. Racism. A good one is Sol Campbell, footballer.
Yes.
He's constantly talking about if he was white, he'd be classed as one of the best footballers in the world. He'd have a knighthood, but because I'm black, no one sees the value in because I was like, I thought he was an amazing player for England.
Yeah, he was okay. I wouldn't say he was amazing.
No, at that time I thought he was amazing. He was, I thought if he was a great player. These people, just like everybody, are looking for excuses to explain some of their mistakes and some of their underachieving, and the actor's doing exactly the same.
Yeah, but the answer to Sol Campbell is very simple, isn't it? Who's regarded as probably in the top 3, if not the greatest player of all time, is Pele, who's a black basically. So the greatest player in the world of all time is a black man, basically. So Sol's argument kind of falls at the first hurdle, doesn't it, really?
There is no argument to make, but he believes it, and because he believes it to be true, it's true. Yeah. Someone commented on this post the other day, we all hate you, Sol, not because you're black, but because you left my London club to go to our rival's London club. That's why we all hate you now. Yeah,
and that's the case. It's the same with Rashford, isn't it? He always claims he's a victim of racism, or people say, "Oh, you're being racist. What's the problem with him?" And when he was, there was various things happening. It's why all the attention on Rashford? Well, it wasn't because he's black. It's because he's been an arsehole. He's not played well for United, and people are sick of him.
Yep.
That's the reason. It's nothing to do with his colour.
Yep.
If he was scoring 2 goals every match, like he should be doing, like Haaland, we'd be all over him, wouldn't we? But he's let us down. And it's not because he's black. It's because he's not playing well, basically.
Well, if he thinks he's playing well, then it has to be racism. What other reason is there? I'm a good player. I've got an MBE for setting up food for kids. I'm a wonderful person. I hide a lot of my money, so I don't pay tax on it, because that's what sort of socialist I am. But if people don't like me and criticise me, it must be because I'm black. And we've been drilling this into black and brown people for decades and decades and decades. The only surprise is that more people don't fall for it. That's the only surprise.
A couple of the final dying throes of the elite, which is still going on. So 50,000 women. This is quite shocking, actually. I don't know if you heard this stat. 50,000 women were placed on mixed sex wards last year in British hospitals. Now that is something that's meant to be an exception. So you're meant to keep the sexes segregated in British hospitals as far as possible. But 50,000 women had to go through the indignity last year in this crap NHS of ours of being placed on a ward with men.
When it comes to the failings of the NHS, this is right down at the bottom of the list. But
it's a very good point. Well,
if the NHS was running well, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
But at the moment in time, the NHS is falling apart. It's run by idiots. We've got more DEI staff today than we did last year. They're still recruiting DEI managers on 80 grand a year. That's in the papers every couple of weeks. The fact they've got 50,000 women across the NHS in a mixed ward. Yeah, it shouldn't happen, but yeah.
And the reason I think the right, and I mean the right, not the right wing, but the right is rising now, is things are now happening. We're getting stats or whatever. You mentioned it the other day, didn't you? But Chris Whitty, interestingly, has come out this week and has stated very clearly that the decision to have mandatory COVID jabs for healthcare workers was 100% a political decision. So the veil is lifting now, isn't it?
All those decisions were political decisions.
Yeah.
Someone who
but what he's saying is, as a healthcare professional, and I said, or healthcare expert, I said it wasn't necessary. The government,
he said that.
Yes. He said he was very sceptical about mandatory COVID jobs for the health work, but he was encouraged or told it had to happen.
Yeah, that's because we had cowards leading us.
Yeah.
Who said to themselves, if people die and we've not given them the vaccine, it makes us look bad. Any damage by the vaccines will be years from now. I might not be in power. My excuse will be we didn't know. The best solution for me politically is to force people to take the vaccine so things don't get out of hand. It was a political decision.
And some people were seduced by it. I know people who have had 2 jabs, Nick.
So do I.
And I also found out apparently that healthy people like me, or we call ourselves the purebloods, by the way.
Yeah.
The people who haven't had the COVID jab. You wouldn't know that, Nick. But apparently people like you and healthy people shed. Have you heard of this thing called shedding?
No.
So you shed things off your body with the mRNA, because you've now got that mRNA thing in you, haven't you?
No,
So that it can actually get into my body if I'm not. Okay, I'm sure our viewers know all about it.
No, good. So, Before you come, I shed all over that chair.
So, if you ever meet us in public, ladies and gentlemen, which we're going to talk about in a minute, if you ever meet us in public, just stay away from Nick and the shedding. That's all. It's too late for me now.
See, I'm a better person than you because I'm not prejudiced. I don't treat people differently based on the medical procedures they may or may not have had.
I do, especially COVID.
I'm quite happy allowing people, adults, to make decisions that they deem is best for them. I don't want the government telling me to take vaccines, and I don't want someone else telling people don't take the vaccine. I want people to be given the information, all the information, good and bad.
Yes.
And I want adults to make those decisions themselves.
But you made the decision without all the information.
I had all the information, and
you still made that decision.
I made a decision that at that moment in time, the risk of the vaccine to me compared to the benefits of going on holiday was negligible.
That was a bad decision.
I went on holiday.
That was a bad decision based on an untested vaccine that hadn't gone through the proper procedures.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Right, we'll move on. We'll ignore that twitch. And the final. Oh no, I'll miss that one out. The final one, which I think I know you'll have a view on. Oxfam have actually got their calculators out. And I know you love the big charities. I know you donate to most of them on a regular basis.
The child rapists.
The child rapists, or Oxfam as we know them, have done some research in India, basically, about reparations and all that jazz. And they've calculated, and it's a very precise number, so I'm sure they've done their work correctly. They've calculated that Britain owes India £52 trillion.
Right. Well, what a coincidence that is. Because I did a calculation the other day about what we should charge India for policing and stopping them in a practice called sati, burning of widows with their dead husbands. And the price I came up with was 52 trillion.
Oh, so it nets off.
It just wipes each other out.
That's fantastic.
So we're even, Stephen.
You need to put the paper out there in opposition to the Oxfam one, basically.
Yeah, because I charge. This country charges a lot to uncivilized countries burning women to death. So we charge them a lot, stopping them, and it's 52 trillion.
And what about all the infrastructure that Britain put in there as well, and all the?
That was a gift. Yeah, I'm just charging for stopping them burning young women to death and old women as well.
So on that note, because I think we've gone on quite a long time, Nick. On that note, Nick, you've managed to settle the reparations with India at the end of that, and on that positive.
I've upset a whole subcontinent there.
You can imagine all the grifters in India rubbing their hands together and going, "Great, 52 trillion." It's like my wife always comments on once that there was some guys in Jamaica, and there was some old Rastafarian who looked like he'd never done a day, big dreadlocks and smoking a big ganja thing, and he looked like he'd never done a day's work in his life. And one of the BBC reporters went over to him and said, "What do you think about the idea of Britain paying reparations to all the black people because of the slavery thing?" He said, "Yeah, it's a great idea." And why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? Nick Buckley, MBE, thank you very much for that. Episode 76 of The Mayor.
Thank you much.